Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So it's late, but I'm very thankful. I got one of my big projects done today, so I'm really happy about that. And I hope that you enjoyed the message, even though I question my ability to share with you all at the same level when it's super late and I'm tired. But hopefully, everything will come through in the manner that I want it to. So I just hope that you enjoy it. We're going to be talking about Santa Claus tonight. And so, and specifically, we're going to be pulling some inspiration from the story. Especially with regards to healing and growing and learning after coming into the awareness of wolves in sheep's clothing, personal entanglements, and things like that, right? After possibly experiencing psychological abuse, we've all had unique experiences. So I know that if you're watching my channel, you're here for a reason, and there's something that you can relate to that resonates with you. And so all of my videos are inspired by exiting a toxic situation, you might say, and wanting to learn and grow from there. So I hope you enjoy what I've got prepared for you today. So, Santa, fake or real? That's the question. And, I feel like after a season of entanglement, you might say, with deceit. In other words, being deceived for some time by someone who wore a great mask, in other words, right? After you come out of a situation like that, it's really easy to dismiss everything and everyone as artificial. And I think we just kind of overcompensate in that way in our effort to try and protect ourselves. And so, especially when it comes to fairy tales and folklore and myth and things like that, right? It's so easy to just immediately dismiss those as fiction, when in reality, there are things recorded, people and stories and everything recorded in history that that are related to these stories, these myths, quote unquote, right? So. We're going to be learning how, as we go through the story of Santa Claus, the origin story, we're going to be learning how, we can mitigate unnecessary pressure in this world, and sometimes avoid it, but we can't totally avoid the hard things, unfortunately. As long as we're here on this earth, going through this human experience, unfortunately, there's just going to be some really hard experiences, and I don't think we can avoid all of them. And so I think that resetting our expectations is really important. Getting back in balance with regards to just staying away from the extremes, staying away from being totally gullible, but also totally not having any kind of belief at all or ability to trust. Just wanting to keep our baseline at a place of skepticism. Is that really healthy? And so that's why I like to really just explore so many different things on my channel, just to and I'm always talking about expanding the mind. It's to bring us back into balance. That's the whole purpose of doing that, right? So with the history of Santa Claus, anytime I've personally considered just my limited, understanding of Santa Claus, I always tend to recall Saint Nicholas, the story of Saint Nicholas, and I've come into another story that's related, and I know that with a lot of Christian traditions, there are a lot of pagan traditions that are extremely similar. And I'm not dismissing that there are similarities, places where specifics in these, like traditions and the different things that people and families do as part of their rituals or whatever they're doing, just in the way that they celebrate. I'm not dismissing the fact that there are a lot of similarities that are in alignment, so just know that. But I do want to mention also the Greek goddess, her name is Artemis, and then the equivalent in the Roman myths would be Diana. She was very similar to the actual Saint Nicholas. But the difference is the Greek and Egyptian myths happened, like during the BC era. And then Saint Nicholas is from the 300s AD. So there's a difference there, right? But, in looking into Artemis, because, like, for example, the similarities, she actually, she was a hunter goddess. And so she was known for her connection with deer, which we talked about recently, and hunting, obviously. But she also was very protective of sailors as well as women and children, and that's very much in alignment with St. Nicholas. So very interesting. But there's so many other things about her and that story that are just totally out of alignment with St. Nicholas. And this is the kind of thing where, it's easy to just, if you don't have the time to spend on this kind of research, or you just don't want to spend the time on it, you just take another person's word on it. When somebody says, oh, that's just based on a pagan tradition, well, that's the end of the road there for you. If if you don't want to take the time, or you don't have the time to do further research. So in looking into it, just a short while further beyond that, there's just so many things with regards to her character that would totally be in contrast to the character of St. Nicholas. So in looking into, the true origins of St. Nicholas, I personally feel like the character that Santa Claus is most closely in alignment with St. Nicholas, more so than Artemis or Diana or any other characters that I've found anyway. So again, there may be bits and pieces that are similar throughout history, but as far as looking at the character of the person, I think that Santa Claus is best represented in the historical story of St. Nicholas. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. And so in looking at the etymology of, Santa Claus, I've mentioned this in a previous video, but Claus comes from Klaas, meaning victory of the people. It's a Dutch word, right? Dutch name or word, Claus, victory of the people. And then Nicholas is actually the way it was spelt. It's Nikolaos. So it's, again, very much related to the word Claus, again, meaning victory. So, and then if you take a look at Santa, that's just a variation of the word saint. And the etymology of that would mean to set apart or divinely inspired, a member of the body of Christ, or one of the elect. So, again, this is just my opinion here. But in looking at everything and the inspiration for the character of Santa Claus coming from St. Nicholas, and looking at the etymology of these names and how they are very much divinely inspired, spiritually inspired, I personally do not see a conflict in the spirit of the essence of the Santa Claus character. I don't see a conflict between that and a spiritual practice. So that's just my 2 cents there for what it's worth. And I'm certainly not indicating anybody's wrong. Everybody is totally welcome to have their own opinions and their own belief systems, and it's free will, right? And so part of the grand design. So Yes, I want to share with you all a website that I found that was really cool in my research. I'm just going to read a short part, the beginning part on St. Nicholas. And so this is from Saint, it's just abbreviated St. Nicholas, Nicholas Center.org. And the article is Who is St. Nicholas? And it says, the true story of Santa Claus begins with Nicholas, who was born during the 3rd century in the village of Patera in Asia Minor. At the time, the area was Greek and is now on the southern coast of Turkey. His wealthy parents, who raised him to be a devout Christian, died in an epidemic while Nicholas was still young. Obeying Jesus' words to sell what you own and give the money to the poor, Nicholas used his whole inheritance to assist the needy, the sick, and the suffering. He dedicated his life to serving God and was made Bishop of Myra while still a young man. Bishop Nicholas became known throughout the land for his generosity to those in need, his love for children, and his concern for sailors and ships. Under the Roman Emperor Diocletian, and you're just going to have to excuse my my interpretation of how to pronounce these words. I'm going to do my best, so please excuse me. But under the Roman Emperor Diocletian, who ruthlessly persecuted Christians, Bishop Nicholas suffered for his faith, was exiled, and imprisoned. The prisons were so full of bishops, priests, and deacons, there was no room for the real criminals. Murderers, thieves, and robbers. Yeah, that sounds about right, huh? Pretty interesting. After his release, Nicholas attended the Council of Nicaea. I hope I'm saying that right. I'll drop the spelling here. In AD 325. He died December 6, AD 343 in Myra and was buried in his cathedral church, where a unique relic called manna formed in his grave. This liquid substance, said to have healing powers, fostered the growth of devotion to Nicholas. The anniversary of his death became a day of celebration. St. Nicholas Day, December 6th, and then it says in parentheses, December 19th if on the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar. December 19th if on the Julian calendar. Through the centuries, many stories and legends have been told of St. Nicholas's life and deeds. These accounts help us understand his extraordinary character and why he is so beloved and revered as protector and helper of those in need. So, just very exemplary of the Christian spirit through the Christian lens, or I just invite you to use your own lens of perception. Just a very selfless person with a good heart. And so from there it expands, and I'll drop the link to this article, but it talks about specific stories, things that he did that are things that are documented, and they're just really interesting examples. For example, it goes on to talk about these bags of gold that were tossed into the windows of people's houses for people to use in the marriage system where dowries were a thing. And then supposedly that's thought of as the possible origin of wanting to hang stockings, right? Because there were these bags thrown into the windows that had gold. And then there's just, stories of him saving people from just horrible situations, just life-saving type acts that he did. He provided food during famine, and it just goes on and on from there. So just a really incredible character, right? So, I think the importance of this story for us who have gone through some hard things, especially with regards to what you would call wolves in sheep's clothing, right? Is found in the example of his life, St. Nicholas's life, okay? I think it's important that we understand, it talks about him being in prison. He suffered, he was persecuted, and he faced challenges. And yet he persevered to do what? To serve others, to pay it forward. So, our blessings are never sweeter than after you've been through a really hard time, right? That just makes everything that much better. And so let me share with you all Psalms chapter 97, verses 10 through 12. I was just called to wrote this into the message, and hopefully you'll get something from it. So this is going to be the King James Version translation. And so this particular section actually starts out by saying, hate evil at verse 10, to hate evil. It says, ye that love the Lord hate evil. He preserveth the souls of his saints. He delivereth them out of the hand of the wicked. And then verse 11, light is sown for the righteous, and gladness for the upright in heart. Rejoice in the Lord, ye righteous, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. And so, and really the whole, Psalms 97 is just really cool. It talks about the righteous reign of the Lord, and it talks about how, the mountains, the hills will melt, at his presence. It's just really incredible. It's very short too. But it's kind of like, it talks about there at the end, that light is sown for the righteous. When we come out of these bad situations, we are gifted with the light of awareness. It truly is a gift because it can furthermore serve to protect our lives, to preserve our lives, so that we can be of use for God to do some good in the world. You see what I'm saying? And so that's just one way to look at it. And you do. If you come out of a situation where you literally don't even feel like you would have survived, especially, or if it's just extremely, difficult or challenging, you do come out of it. If you come out of it at all, you certainly do rejoice at that. You're very thankful, to have your life. And, do you still have desires for your life? Sure you do. Sure you do. But again, it puts everything into a new perspective for you, for sure. And so, I noticed that, St. Nicholas, before he was really, deemed a saint, he was bishop, right? I noticed that he attended this council of Nicaea. I don't know if I'm saying that right, after he was released from prison. And this was interesting because, let me share this with you all. If I can find it. Yeah. So this actually, the whole point of it, this council, is that it was assembled to preserve the unity of the church, which was threatened by competing claims about the nature of Jesus Christ. So he was called to action. He was moved. After he was released from prison, right? And a lot of us feel that way. We are very much moved after we come out of, a mental prison, you might say, or just a bad circumstance. So to give back to God, you might say, you can literally do this, materially, literally do this, if you think about it, by serving the members of the body of Christ through the Christian lens, right? And so, a hard truth that I've had to face and come to terms with is that when God's favor is on you, it doesn't mean that you'll never again suffer. It's just part of this human experience, unfortunately. So it's about bringing our expectations back into alignment again. You know what I mean? Just getting back into balance. But it's almost like, sometimes I think that it's human nature to almost like automatically or subconsciously assume that, everything is supposed to go a certain way and just be, great. And sometimes we have seasons like that, and that's a beautiful thing. But, just because we're faced with challenges, it doesn't mean that we're not worthy of a better season. It doesn't mean that we are not, that God doesn't love us. It doesn't mean that, you see what I'm saying? It's like we don't have to make everything mean more than what it does. And I think that if we can just come to a place of seeing things for what they are and not making them about our worth or about our relationship with God, by just checking in with expectations that may be running in the background in our subconscious that are producing these feelings of just disappointment, or anxiety or depression or whatever it is going on. If we can just check in with these expectations that, again, we may not even be conscious of, I think that's really going to help us to get to a place of balance. The Bible has many examples of, stories, kind of like the one, with St. Nicholas, that basically say, if you just come out of a situation alive, you're doing good. You know what I mean? And there's even a verse, I'll have to find it, where it talks about, if you can just come out of everything and stand, if after everything you go through, if you can just stand, to be able to stand, it's basically saying that's a blessing. Because you're still standing. I'm thinking of Elton John, I'm still standing better than I ever did. So I'm not trying to sing for you all, but you see, it's a great song. But it's, if you come out of this bad situation and you're still standing, then you win. You know what I'm saying? It's about like adjusting your expectations. And so, my point here is just to be delivered, it has to be enough. It has to be. And I'm reminded even of, in Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now, where he says, if it's not enough, man, it's not enough. Again, our expectations sometimes are just through the roof, and it's like, where did that come from? I don't know, maybe all the conditioning and the movies and Hollywood and Disney and I don't know. But yeah, especially, a lot of people that have a near-death experience, they come out of that for sure with their perspective shifted. And so I actually dropped a new one of those videos that really kind of spoke to me in the playlist I have for you all called For the Warriors. It's really great. And so if you have time, it's about 30 minutes long. I listened to it earlier while I was wrapping presents and everything. But yeah, just to be delivered, in other words, it doesn't mean that we are entitled to a life free of pain and hurt and disappointments. You know what I mean? All that stuff's still going to be there. It's just part of the experience. It's part of it. We just have to learn to ride the waves and get through it. So now, does this mean that God doesn't care about our desires? I would say no. I think He very much cares about our desires. And so, I keep seeing where people are stuck, even in Bible stories that I'm reading, in what I would call a lack of faith, honestly. So it's kind of like, where's the balance of having faith in good things to come and yet also being realistic? I think that's an honorable thing to ponder, don't you? So let me share with you all Mark chapter 11, verse 23. It says, "For verily I say unto you," I love this. I love it because anytime it's talking about what we're about to get into here, which is the power that we have, that it's almost like it's so big, it's almost unbelievable. It's almost like hard for us to even really believe this. But yet, just time and again in examples, just put forth in these stories in the Bible, in real life stories, real life things people have been through, the perseverance. It's incredible. And then, to hear where, God spoke to a person or even the words of Jesus himself, where he's like emphasizing, like, this is the real deal. Like, are you listening? Or again, I tell you, again, you know what I mean? It's like, man, how hard-headed, it's just like, do you have to be? So I think that's something to take notice of, don't you? So again, we see that here. Mark chapter 11, verse 23. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Again, I think it's a joint effort. It's like, it's kind of like, what's the problem? What's the problem here? We're talking about manifestation. We're talking about the effects of faith. We're talking about a power so great that it's almost unbelievable. So, I think the issue here is twofold. Number one, I think that we're waiting on God, and yet God's waiting on us. God's like, you have free will. You don't have to believe. But what if? What if it's like we just are stuck in this black and white thinking, this default, human mind computer that just wants to just look at the two extremes and just ignore, the steps that you have to take to get there, the middle ground, the gray area. I mean, what if you just took 1 or 2 steps a day in the direction of your dreams? I mean, for real. You know what I mean? Again, faith without works is dead. So, and then number 2, when we're talking about the issue, right, of, the issue we all have that we struggle with verse 23 here, number 2, maybe we're just stuck in limited thinking with God, right? Or limited thinking, rather. And then I wrote, with God, with God all things are possible. With man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. It's kind of like we need to differentiate between impossible and possible versus unbelievable and believable. We need to differentiate between those things and align those meanings appropriately. So, we have to decide. Okay. If that's the case, with man this is impossible. With God all things are possible. Then we have a decision to make. Are we going to do it with God or not? It's just a thought. But as far as St. Nicholas, I just want to close by saying, what an accomplishment. For real, what an accomplishment. If you think about it, to make such an impact that you are remembered thousands of years later, right? Well, almost thousands, because he's from the 300s, right? AD, but essentially to become a legend. That's something to aspire to, isn't it? But yeah, that's possible. It's possible. And so, if you think about what are your desires? God knows the desires of your heart. And so it is a fortunate and beautiful thing to have survived a hard situation or a hard time or a tragedy or a dangerous situation. That's a blessing and a wonderful thing. But I don't think that we are destined or expected to just stay stuck in a place of what's really hopelessness or a lack of faith just because we're trying to protect ourselves by being realistic. Again, I think it's about, there's proof if you believe. It's not like we could have been there firsthand and seen all this with our own eyes and heard it all with our own ears. But faith is required, right? Although, the Bible says that those who, haven't seen but still believe are even more so blessed, for having the faith and not having been there. So I just hope that you're encouraged. I hope that you are inspired to know that that good things are possible. And I just hope that you are encouraged to further do some research on your own if you would like. And I just thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.